excited about our chat today.
I am as well. I am also excited about our chat. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is another edition of the Boston New Technology Fireside Chat Series. This one is really special. I know I say that every week, but this time it's something that represents an ambition of ours as an organization to get to know better women in tech global, but also in particular, one of its most brightly shining stars, Dasha Shunina, who I personally have been following her work and all the contributions she's made to the world of startups, innovation, community. There's quite a lot to unpack. But as always, I want to thank everybody for joining us. And now I'd like to graciously extend the virtual mic over to Dasha so you can give us an introduction.
Thank you, thank you. I guess here, yeah. Oh, thank you for all these kind words. So this is
Of
amazing.
course.
If I need to rewrite my CV or like some cover letters, I'll definitely ask you to help me with that.
I used to do that in a former life. Surprise,
Oh yeah,
surprise.
because the
There
words
you
you use
go.
are amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you so much for everything. I'm really excited to talk today about women in tech, about community building. So yeah, and I'm really happy to partner with you guys. So let's start.
All right, that's great. So I am pretty, I was going to say boring, but boring is probably not a very nice word to use. I'm very predictable in the sense that in my interviewing style, when I start doing this with people, I think the best place to start really is like at the beginning. So if we go back in time to when things were first starting to like form up for you and your journey, what you wanted to do, can you take us back to that moment of like the origin story? I know everybody's is different, but I'd love for you to just sort of like open up the book and let's like read that first chapter together of Dasha's like journey into all of this.
Yeah. So I believe I wouldn't go too far, but I would put it the following way. So
Mhm.
I guess if we go back to the childhood, I not imagine that I would be here at this point. Yeah, I didn't
Same, same.
imagine myself in tech. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I don't actually know if there are some people who know a childhood that they would be there. But yeah,
Not
so
me.
I didn't plan that. So I believe it happened. During the journey.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I was more, I believe, into languages, maybe more into, politics or something like that. So I had this interest in, history, geography. So yeah. But then, slowly with time that appeared and it happened. Specifically, if we talk about building communities and if we talk about women in tech, I believe so in general, my whole career path in tech started like around 8 years ago, but women in tech happened like around 3 years ago, and that was really interesting. So I first joined as a mentor, and here I realized how important and crucial it was, especially for those mentees who wanted some advice or some tips or insights. And I truly saw how inspirational these conversations could be. When you talk to someone, share your expertise, and then you see how this person changes their career path for better, that's absolutely incredible. So that's how I realized the power, of mentorship and in general of community. And then I joined the Women in Tech Management team, USA. And that's a really exciting journey, I should say. And building community around women in tech, building this supportive environment, to share success stories, to struggle together over some challenges, to have this supportive shoulder, that's absolutely amazing. And I think like when you have a special mission, when your community, when your like company has a very special mission, it's very interesting, and that gives more thanks to everything. And so that's why I'm truly happy to build this community around women in tech, to explore the challenges, to learn more and more, with every woman I meet. It's really incredible. And, also, I guess the brightest thing, what also like made me even more passionate about women in tech is after I became a mom. So because I saw a lot of false stereotypes about being, a pregnant working mom, about working mom in general. And, I saw a lot of women who were struggling between successful career or, family life. And here I realized that actually both things can work together. So, and that's why I'm super passionate about it right now, inspiring other moms, inspiring other women who are building their not only professional but private lives to try it out.
I don't know how to respond to all of that wonderment. There's another fancy word for you. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
wow. So I'm feeling so exuberant about this because, I mean, for many reasons. So I also wanted to quickly joke with you and say that it's okay. Like when I was a kid, I didn't know if I wanted to be like an astronaut, marine biologist, maybe both, which would have been really awkward for like the fish, taking them all the way up into outer space. But I think that that's true for most people. Very few have this like very well defined, especially when you're babies. Like, you want to do everything and be everything. And I wasn't expecting you. Thank you for going
Yeah.
so far in time. But I honestly, I speak about this quite often. So when I think about it's, from my position, obviously, as a man in the tech industry, when I think about women in tech, I myself personally have had a very unique situation in that coming into my own as an entrepreneur, some
Mm-hmm.
of the most supportive voices were not men, actually. They were women.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that when I was doing a startup events organization, for example, not this one, but another one, I will never forget what, and I have no problem shouting her out, Oana Manolake from what is now known as Sequel, but at the time was known as Introvoke, which was one of the world's first like live streaming platforms. She said to me something that has stuck with me and will stick with me for the rest of my life, which I think is very Dasha like, very, much in your philosophy of
Mm-hmm.
technology is the great connector of people, but it's also something that we always have to apply a lot of empathy towards, where we shouldn't just focus on technology as shiny objects. And for you, what I've noticed is like everything that you do is like super intentional, like in the mission around, supporting women in technology. For me, I think, and I would love to get your thoughts on it specifically as we go into like another topic, sort of like, further distilling down the topic of women in tech. I think similar to such things as like when people talk about impact driven startups or wherever there's even the faintest trace of perceived sentimentality, which I mean, it's not supposed to be, obviously, but I think a lot of people have created a lot of stereotypes, a lot of misconceptions about such things. I love that you provided the example of like, pregnant moms and
Yeah.
moms who happen to be in business. Like people have all kinds of, foolish assumptions that they make. And I think the problem that is often the case is, when you talk about such subjects, people are like, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's sweet. But really, it's also incredibly important, especially from the perspective of business, because actually, nobody has to believe me. All they have to do is go read all of the reports that are put out year over year about the success of women in business, women founders, so on and so forth. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that specifically about, I guess, challenging both industry and societal norms around like women in business?
Yeah, a good question. I also wanted to mention something about men and women working together. To your point, that you said
Yeah.
that women were super supportive while you were on your career journey, and I can say the same about men. And very often, some people think that if you advocate for women in tech, it means that you do not support men in tech, or
Exclusionary, yeah.
yeah, so it's not about that. It's just that we're talking about these, minorities, I would say, in tech, because this is a fact, right? We have statistics here. So we just want to highlight that there are brilliant women in tech as well. It doesn't mean that men are not good in tech or that we do not want them there. No, of
Right.
course not. It just means that when men and women work together, it's a very beautiful synergy. And in general, when different diverse groups they work together, the decisions are more interesting, the organization is better, everything works smoother. So that's like literally amazing, because like magic happens only when we have different points of view, different styles, different ways of working together. And yeah, I can say that men, for me, they also play a crucial role, starting from, my husband, and also from my coworkers, some colleagues, friends. And that's great. So we should work together. So this is
Build coalition, yeah.
we should support together, and also very often, just wanted to add a little bit more here. I wanted to add that sometimes even men can be more supportive than women, because when we talk about women, there is also a place for competition sometimes, and that's normal. I mean, that's okay. But here you should also consider, both sides. So you shouldn't limit your friend or your supporters only by gender. So it's not a good idea. Yeah. And so then the next question was, sorry, I like got lost. It
No,
was
I
about,
think I
yeah.
wanted to, and I wanted to also really underscore what it is that you're saying, because I think the road to hell is paved with good intentions, in the sense that I feel like people sometimes, to your point, seem to think, oh, like gender equality means there's some sort of like exclusionary, like you have, it's just women only, men only. Like, no, I think
Yeah.
in creating better ecosystems, those ecosystems must by default be diverse, not just like in a way that kind of smushes them all together, but it has to be very intentional. But yeah, my other question was basically, with all of the work that you've done, with all of the experience that you have, I mean, when you hear divergent opinions on this, like when people do kind of like still perpetuate some of those, like stereotypes, saying like women, who happen to be mothers as well. Like, I mean, do you think that it's getting like any better? Do you think it's staying the same? Like, are there any indicators of like forward progress, like that kind of thing?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. So I think definitely is going for better. I can see more and more women in tech. I can see more and more female founders. I can see more, female representative at tech companies. Just recently I was here in San Francisco at the Google's Developer Summit, and I was impressed to see so many women and women of color as speakers having, high positions in different companies from Fortune, 500. So that was amazing. I was impressed. That's really great and impressive. And back to Miami, for example, Miami is really well known for a lot of female representatives in their tech ecosystem. And that's incredible. So whenever you go to different summits or like venture funds, you see so many women. If we talk about the West Coast, I believe here we have much more male representative. And in September, I was in San Francisco at TechCrunch, and I was staying in a line to get my badge, and I saw only men. So I was like, oh my God, why I'm not single? There is such a great variety, because you can clearly see that this ecosystem is like, you can see a lot of male representatives here, but we're working on that. There are a lot of different events. Women in Tech is really focused on that. Is focused to empower more and more women in tech. And there is no, unfortunately, one simple solution here, right? So, but there are certain steps that can be taken to slowly change the situation, right? First one, I think that is really, really important is just to start talking about it regularly and openly, raising awareness about the importance of diversity and gender equality through public discourse, industry events, media campaigns, and all of these can influence the perception, and it can encourage more women to consider careers in tech and venture capital. And when you do these events, you should not only talk about women and be, this like hidden supportive group. You should also invite men to speak about this, to ask them what's wrong, why don't you have enough women there, what is the reason, and so on. Another step is, fostering a more inclusive and supportive work environment. So when you implement different mentorship programs, networking opportunities, special initiatives that highlight successful women in this field, that can provide valuable support and guidance, and our events at Women in Tech, they are really focused on that. Number three is, I would say, education Yeah, educational initiatives, they play a significant role as well. So encouraging girls to pursue, career in tech at an early stage, because sometimes the reason is that a lot of women, a lot of girls, they don't even think about building career in tech because they have different patterns. They have examples of their mothers who were, I don't know, bakers, or who were, accountants, or who were, I don't know, just housewives, and they just don't have this example that they can follow. When you have your mother working at Google, probably it's another story. Then you understand, oh, so my mom is there, it means that I can do it too. But a lot of the majority of girls, I would say, they don't have this example, and that's why they don't even think about that. But maybe they can be successful there, right? But they're not aware of that. So education is really important. So when you have different scholarship, or different coding boot camps specifically targeting women, that can also facilitate entry into the tech industry for them. Some more, maybe, companies and venture capital firms, they should actively work on diversifying their leadership and decision making roles, setting special diversity goals, promote equal pay for women and men, create family friendly policies, and all of these steps can contribute to a more inclusive workspace. And of course, infrastructure, talking about working moms and dads as well, because a lot of people ask me, like, what can we do to help working moms, or like, what can we do here? So there are some solutions like flexible working hours, and right now it's getting easier, right? Because we have a lot of hybrid models where you can spend like some days at the office, some days at home. Maternity rooms, it sounds very simple, and I'm sure that a lot of people don't even think about that, people who don't have kids or who are not moms yet. But maternity rooms can really help you to be at the office, special breaks, for breast pumping during the day, kid friendly offices. And I'm a little bit shocked that I see here a lot of pets friendly offices, but I don't actually see kid friendly offices. Like a lot of companies, they build parks for pets, they build, I don't know, different things that you can do during the working day at the office. But why not to build a daycare facility, for example, where I can come with my kids, leave them there, and go work in peace at the office? So that can make a significant difference. I'm sorry for being too long or boring. These are just some of the ideas that, in my opinion, can make a difference.
No, 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 not boring in the least. In fact, facing a very unique problem right now, everyone, which is that you, Dasha, have said so many interesting things that I don't know where I want to start first. It's like one of those situations where, the appetizers are being passed around at an event and you don't know which one you want to try first. So I I really like that you provided concrete steps in terms of how we may improve the situation generally, because I think that sometimes we, as a startup ecosystem, even globally, locally, etc., we can be, myself included, very aspirational, very dreamy. Like, wouldn't it
Yeah,
be nice? Wouldn't it be great? What I really like about you is that you definitely want to encourage like systems thinking. Like, no, there are like tangible, actual steps that we can architect
yeah,
to make
exactly.
sure that these things happen, and they will make the lives of everyone generally much better. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, I will first preface with a story.
Okay.
So, Boston New Technology was privileged to host the Techstars Startup Weekend this past September. And, it was one of those things where it was a little scary because it was our first time hosting like a very large scale conference.
Yeah.
I was baptized by fire, project management wise. Like, it was a thing. I remember, for example, when first night we had such a great attendance, and the Techstars global rep, it said something to the effect of like, "Oh, you guys broke records," and I was thinking to myself, "What do you mean we broke? What did we break? We broke stuff already?" And she's like, "No, no, no, no. Like you did a lot of great things with the attendance, the teams, and so on and so forth." But all of that aside, for me, if you were to challenge me, Dasha, and say, "Yeah, but Steve, like for example, why do you want to do it again? Why was it so nice?" It's because of a young woman in tech, actually. So we have
Mhm.
this really awesome individual in our community. Her name is Hitomi. So she's originally from Japan. Came to Massachusetts to study, entrepreneurship, other
Hmm.
things. And, at the end of the weekend, you have to take feedback. You have to like try to, put that into your analysis. Like, and usually, I mean, you're in community, I'm in community. You know what it's like. People usually say things like, I really like this, good job, or they say, this sucks. Well, I don't never want to do this again. This was horrible. But with Hitomi, she was very descriptive and yet was also very succinct in her what she said really stuck with me. This is what she said. She said, Steve, I'm so glad that I attended the Techstar Startup Weekend. And I said to her, that's great. Like, what did you enjoy about it? Or like, how can we improve? She's like, oh, no, no. Like, I really feel like I found my people. And when that hit me, it hit me like a lightning bolt, or like the fire in the belly. And I'm like, yeah, we got to do this again. So my question to you would be, how do how do we continue to foster those kinds of feelings in moments? Because the reason why I'm asking this is I feel like as community builders, we sometimes think the solution is with, for example, like more programming, more things to do, more speakers. But do you think there's another way to be like more intentional with community building to evoke reactions like that of Hitomi?
It's a very interesting question, and I like this story. I really like that part.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing it with me.
of
And
course.
I think it's really important. But I think that goals here can be really different. So you mentioned that this girl was really happy about finding her people and probably this fear that she really likes, right? Because a lot of people, they study something, but it doesn't mean that they want to do it further in their careers, right? And it's a big problem for a lot of young people that they cannot find things that they're interested in, and they're trying to find them. So in this case, it was a beautiful, it's a beautiful synergy, and she found her people, and I believe she found what she really likes doing. And I have, for example, another story for you. We had an event in New York City, also like a Women in Tech meetup that we host monthly. And one girl, she was looking desperately for, like a fellowship or an internship at VC. And she came to one of our events, and that event was co-hosted together with Techstars. And she, at the end of the event, she managed to make some useful connections, and eventually she got her internship there. And then she sent us a video where she said, thank you so much, that's incredible, I'm so happy, because of your event I found like the job of my dream. And that's amazing. So you see, finding your own people, finding your, like dream job, finding friends, I don't know, finding some other useful resources that can be helpful for you. That's all why all these, community exists. And communities, they're all about shared identities, shared values. And so like, I mean, when we plan events, we should think not only, as you mentioned, we should think not only about which speakers to invite or how to attract a wider audience, but how to make more meaningful connections, how to make people actually not just, network in terms of fast food, that's how I call it. Because when you go to a lot of big events, you don't even have enough time to speak to every person and to dive deeper into their world. You just can say, hi, my name is Dasha, I'm at Women in Tech, what do you do? Okay, let's exchange our contact, that's it, and then you can barely even remember who you saw at this party, who you saw at this event, but more about meaningful connections, about working together. So if you're talking about the team of volunteers, how to unite them, maybe to go together, I don't know, to walk, or like to have like some, like a little meetup just for you together, to build this trust, to build some sort of relationships. And this is the biggest problem, and that's why people are so lonely, because they don't have meaningful conversations, they don't have deep, interactions with each other. And yeah, and so volunteers can do this. People who attend events, they can also think, we can think how to introduce everyone to each other, or at least try so people not only know the names of each other, but they know that, for example, I love dogs and I love, I don't know, like latte from Starbucks or something like this. So it's really important. but you have to be intentional with that. You have to be, proactive here. So, and during like our events that we host, I always try to be very specific, and I try to like unite people and help them to meet with each other, help to inspire conversations, help to dive deeper. I'm trying to say, like, if I know the person and when I introduce this person to another person, what is this person so special about, like some facts that I think can help them to get connected. So this is really important. I hope you agree with me here.
I mean, what do you think? I'm sort of following the pattern here of yes, most definitely agreeing with you on this because at the end of the day, what we are doing as community builders is we're trying to connect others. We may be not just connecting others as individuals, people to people only, but we're also trying to bring about meaningful connection in general as a rule. And it's funny because I have another humorous, well, somewhat humorous anecdote to share with you. So, one of the people that I'm most grateful for, and I hope she's listening to this later when I share the recording, but at Boston New Technology, we have a social media strategist, and I also call her like our digital channel navigator. So, she takes care of so many things. She's from Venezuela. Her name is Barbara. Hi, Barbara. So, we've done this thing lately where we've been having these like little huddle ups, right? Like stand ups on like digital strategy, social media, like. And when she first came to work for us, it was during the previous administration of Boston New Technology, and she was used to like okay, I have to get the newsletter done on time. I have to get this and that. I'm a very different kind of person when it comes to that. I think you are as well, where it's like, no, I want you to feel very engaged, and I also want you to be honest with me. So because I could see that she had a very like creative potential locked
Mhm.
inside of like herself, and I'm like, you know what, we need help with a lot of things, so maybe it's a win-win. So like I asked her just a couple weeks ago, this is very funny, I said, Barbara, I want you to forget that you work here, like just give me your honest opinion, like when you look at like the way we're doing things, do you think we're Boston New Technology or do you think we're Boston Old Technology? And she said, you want me to be honest, right? I'm like, absolutely. Please tell me. She's like, yeah, you're still a little bit too much Boston Old Technology. You need to get with the times. I'm like, thank you for doing that. Because the thing is, and I see that you do this too with like, women in tech, the way you interact with others, bringing out the best in them, but also like as leaders, I think that we have to be comfortable getting challenged like all the time, our assumptions, our ways of doing things, because when I did it with Barbara, it wasn't just like an exercise and like, oh, I want you to be confident and tell me exactly like what's on your mind. Like she is so amazing. Like she designed the banner for this thing, for example, like giving her also like the opportunities to enable that creativity. I think when we run organizations, when we run teams, I would love to know your thoughts on this. Like how can we also like create those situations where people feel more empowered and less tied to like routine tasks because then it gets boring, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and I think you already answered this question because
Hmm.
it's just I believe, I strongly believe that there is a problem in a lot of organizations that people do not have voice. Only those people who have voice, who have higher positions, like management, leadership position. And like very often all other people, they cannot share their ideas and express them. Sometimes they can be either very shy or just simply no one asked them. And I saw examples when there was a company and an intern came, and eventually his ideas were greater than ideas of the management team. It was a long process, but somehow they discovered something, so he shared it. And then everyone was surprised that the young guy just graduated from the university. He had better ideas than a management team. But it's not about better, it's just about difference, right? Because when you do certain things on a regular basis, you just do not see, you just see this one way and you don't get inspired, you don't get other creative ideas because it's just, on a regular basis. So you're doing it with your eyes closed and you don't think over. So, and this is important. And especially a lot of women face this problem that no one listens to them, no one asks questions to them, and they keep working, and that's why they do not grow, because not because they're like not qualified, but just because no one asked and they're being too shy or under pressure. And I know that a lot of companies, they do, certain things like 360 where they evaluate each other or trying, to get feedback, but that's probably not always work. And so, yeah, definitely one-on-one should be more, like intentional, building trust so that employees do not feel pressure or do not feel scared, to share these ideas. Constant feedback and a lot of asking questions. I think that good managers, they always ask questions. They ask what they want, like they ask their employees, what do you want, how do you want to grow, like or like you, like what's wrong with us. But Barbara was really brave, because sometimes it's really hard just to tell it, to throw it to your face that yeah,
Definitely is.
your
Yeah.
technology is is not good, man. You have to do something, right? Or the way you work is not really what I expected. But not
Yeah.
everyone is like her, right?
Of
And
course.
yeah, I think we definitely should ask. For example, when we have our internal meetings with women in tech, I always ask them, like, what do you want to achieve? Why did you join? Like, what are your interests? And I really love our president of Women in Tech USA, Lori. Hi, Lori. We're saying hi to everyone here, so I may use my opportunity as well. And she always says that most important is not only to do something better for the organization or company, but just for you to have fun. And this is a very simple tip, but this is so true. I mean, you should also have fun from this. You should like what you're doing. You should be like easy. You should feel comfortable. And she always asks me, like, come on, Dasha, like, okay, we're doing a lot of events. So what do you want out of these events? Like, what's your goal? Like, okay, tomorrow is like a networking event. What do you want? And the goals can be absolutely different. Maybe you want to meet this person, and you can invite him as a speaker to the panel because you've been dreaming about meeting him or her. Maybe you want to get, like a referral from someone and you can meet this person. Maybe you just want to, improve your public speaking skills, and that's why you want to join the, I don't know, like as a moderator or something. Like, the goals can be really different. Most important, yes, to be honest with each other, but it all can be real only through building trust, because probably Barbara and you guys trust each other, and that's why she was not scared to tell you the truth. And you're probably a really great person. So building trust and asking questions is really important.
I mean, so the reason why I thank you for all of that, and I agree with you in particular about Barbara's bravery, because something too is that, I mean, for a lot of people that join teams, right, they're joining very different places with very different lived experiences. Boston has its own like unique startup culture, which Barbara has had to work on, like learning about, which she's done a brilliant job of. Like, I don't have to worry about so many things now. But I mean, I learned this from, believe it or not, another woman, Stephanie Rulick, who's like the leader of the Startup Boston Week, Startup Boston organization here in Boston, because I always tell the story of how I met her. Like, I was very fortunate in that, a year after my mother unfortunately passed away, when my dad and I decided to, let our business go that existed, so that we could take care of her. My dad said to me like late 2016, he's like, now you've given 8 years of your life to this. I want you to go off and like do your own thing with these new startup people you keep talking about. They sound so interesting. So, sometime after that, in 2017, I learned about Startup Boston Week, and I went to the place where it was being held. I got into the elevator, and there was this woman there. She was very bright. She was very energetic, like very excited to see everybody. And I just assumed, oh, like she's probably, part of the Startup Boston team. But I never realized until me and my friends got to the event, that it was Stephanie. It was the leader. And she led by example with that like hospitality and like with that eagerness to get everybody involved. And so what happened was, I also noticed something, which was that not only did she like really have this genuine want to like connect people and build relationships with them, but the way she treated and treats her team every year, there's this team that she works with. I mean, she was like that with them too. And then I eventually joined the team for a while to be a volunteer. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I think that when leaders, and the reason why I brought up Stephanie too is like you mentioned having fun, right? That
Yeah.
was a prerequisite. That was a prerequisite. It's like she very intentionally created spaces and opportunities where, like, for example, we could go to a brewery as a team and have some
Mhm.
drinks together and really get to know each other as people. That was amazing. We went to like the Institute of Contemporary Art this one time. And, people think, yeah, but you're like an organization, you're a business, you should be doing businessy things. And it's like, no, like you also have to foster that human connection again, like what we've been speaking about. So I am going to change topics, but it's still going to be nice and fun. I promise. I want to ask you now, what? So you obviously have the same infectious enthusiasm, the same sense of exuberance around loving what you do, but like, what else? What else motivates you? Like, what else makes you excited most every day? And I guess most importantly, if you want to answer that in any format you wish, like, what keeps you going even when, like, the pardon my French, but even when the shit hits the fan, like, I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, I think the first thing that can be weird, but I love being busy. So
Me too. No, me too. We're
yeah,
together.
and yeah, I really like I cannot stay at home, in bed and doing nothing. For me, this is like it's so tiring. I get tired of doing nothing rather than of doing a lot of things. So yeah, you probably understand me. So I love being busy and I love a lot of different activities and initiatives. So that's number one. It's just, I mean, in terms of my nature, I'm not a lazy person. Sometimes I can be, but I tend to be more hardworking. Number two is, I guess, I really love learning. And by learning, I don't mean just taking different courses, and of course it is interesting, but I mean learning from people. I honestly believe that the best experience is practice, not the books. Well, like I love reading, but yeah, not the books, but practice. When you do something with your hand, that's the best thing that you can do. And that's the best way of learning. So when you do different things, for example, organizing events, as we are talking about them, or building community, you learn while you're doing these things. And that's the most important. So that's why I really love it. And I love learning from people. So when I invite different speakers, I try to invite those people who are really interesting for me so that I'm curious to learn something new from them. And the same about like podcasts. I have my own podcast, Talks with Dasha. So the reason I created it because I really wanted to learn something new from these people. And this is magic because when you're getting ready for a specific topic, you start reading a little bit more about that. You start watching some videos about that. And that's how you like move to the next level. And yeah, I really love, I believe, talking to people and meeting people. So that's why like I love building communities and doing things with people. So everything that is connected with building relationships is really interesting for me. And I guess that's what keeps me motivated and inspired. And the more you do, the more interesting things you see, the more you get inspired, and you simply just cannot stop. And I believe the other thing is also that I have, my daughter and my son looking at me right now, and I want my daughter to stay curious. And the best way you can educate your children is to show it by your example. And like it's really interesting to see when sometimes my son is still young, the daughter is almost 4, so when she sees something like, for example, when she sees me recording a video, or like when I take her to some summits where I'm speaking from the stage, to see her face, to see how she's like, oh look, it's my mom, she's talking about this, yeah, I'm so proud of her. And that's just the best thing. So all these factors, I guess, they inspire me to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the same thing with my mamoshka, like same thing with my mother. Um, honestly, I learned so much
When
from
you
her.
were a kid, right? So she was a great example for you.
Oh, I would say so. Like, if you were to ask me the question, like, how did you become the guy that loves to, like, build relationships, talk to people, build community, etc. So, even when my mother was like very sick, that didn't stop her for 1 second from like trying to get to know people and trying to like bring a little bit of like light into their lives. Like, I remember even when she was in the hospital, pretty frequently towards the end of her life, and I would always like she would always make me laugh because she'd be like, "Oh, this nurse, like their kid is turning certain age today. Like, this other one, they're doing this, they're doing that." Like, she knew everything about everybody, and she made them feel like, so empowered. And when I think about how that applies to my work, it's, we do a lot of things in the startup world. We build a lot of things. We're in business. You want to, VCs, all that stuff. But it is very much a people business, in my opinion, especially when you think about investing, especially when you think about the risks that investors take, the risks that founders make, when many of them, including many women, like give up so much to try and pursue their dreams. Like, but it all comes down to having trust in one another. And really, as we come to the end here in just a bit, I did this one routine with another guest of mine. It's been pretty fun. So before I give you like the last word to take us out, I want you to ask me something, and it could be anything, anything at all. But I like to also have that happen so that, you know, I think, especially with you, Dasha, like you're very intuitive, you're very perceptive, and I think you're very empathetic as well. So I love to see what you've got up your sleeve for me.
So you want me to ask you a question?
Yes, please.
I love it. But probably my question wouldn't be too extraordinary, but still,
Hmm.
because you're building communities, you meet a lot of people, you probably have a lot of friends or coworkers. Is there a person that you would like to meet that you haven't met yet? And who is this person?
It was Dasha Shunina until today.
Thank you.
It
But
was.
okay, let's put it a different way.
Okay.
If we talk about some famous people who maybe are not with us anymore, maybe some famous writers, I don't know, historical figures,
Ooh,
presidents. Is
ooh,
there
ooh.
someone that you would like to learn from in a just casual conversation?
Yeah, it's interesting because we was just speaking about my mother, and one of the things she really raised me on was like the old masters, like the Russian novelists. I read so much of
Oh, wow.
Tolstoy, Dostoevsky,
Really?
yeah, Turgenev. So it's a very difficult question because of the way those writers were, and Chekhov as well. So I think I would like to meet Anton Chekhov at least once, because
Mhm.
the reason why I enjoy his writing so much
Yeah.
is sort of like what we're doing now in this very compartmentalized way. Like Tolstoy, War and Peace, that's an experience. You have to set aside time for that.
Yes.
But with Chekhov, it's like he writes a little story, right? Like only a couple pages long. I was reading one just the other day. And in that little story, that little vignette, it's like you learn so much, you're so entertained. So what I do, like with these, fireside chats, what I try to do in my little community ways, similar. Like we take some time, people make an investment of time in me, in Jason, and everybody on the team and the crew, and I kind of want to give them a play, if you will, or kind of like a performance that they enjoy, but also, as it is with Chekhov's plays and writings, like, it's not just about reading and enjoying the plays, and it's about learning and it's about growing as a person through that process of reading or watching something really enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love reading, and I'm really glad to hear that you've read some great representatives from the classical literature. That's really interesting, and I love them myself. Yeah, and I also think, just a little thought, that a lot of people right now, they're focused on reading more, kind of business literature, business
Yes,
books.
yes.
And I honestly believe that while they can be really amazing and great for your personal or career growth, but they don't have this soul. And that's why I really love reading. And when, in our world where we're so busy, you have to find time for reading, I tend to read more, literature and not business books. And
Mm-hmm.
um, these books have more soul, and they gives you at the end even more inspiration, because your brain gets disconnected from business processes or everything.
Yes.
And it's like it strives, so you start dreaming, you start imagining these things. And this business book, they don't give you this opportunity. So that's why I really encourage everyone to also pay attention at, like, regular books, not just business oriented, because sometimes it gives you even much more inspiration and greater ideas. that you didn't even think of.
You know what's really insightful about what you said just now? I think it could be appreciated in the following fashion. You can read a manual about how to build something, right? Like how to put something together. And to your
Yeah.
point about the business books, it's like, okay, to do this, I need to get this many parts, I need to follow these steps. But if you want to know why, like for example, why do I want to build a model airplane? Oh, maybe I want to read about like the Wright brothers. Why do I want to build model ships? I want to read about the people that built the great ships because then you understand. So you read a manual to get knowledge about how to do something, but I think you read a novel or literature, anything that's a little bit more cerebral, artistic, because you want to understand more of the why, which undeniably is important to you and I. So, what I would like to do now is have you close us out. I'll say thank you to everybody for tuning in to my rambles and Dasha's dissertations. Like clearly a difference between the two. But I'll hand it over to you, Dasha, to take us out with anything you want to say.
My gosh, didn't expect that. No, I think first of all, thank you so much for a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I like that it was so casual, informal, and we discussed different things. And I probably just would like to say everyone who is struggling with something or hesitating, just don't. The best way to learn is to do it. So try to overcome this fear and just try to do step by step. And also, I think what's really important, sometimes you think that you put so much effort into something, but you don't get a result. But, from day to day, it may look very, chaotic. But then if you see the long term, perspective, you will see that actually all these little steps led you to a certain point. So don't be afraid, try new different things, learn. And if you're especially a woman in tech or want to be a woman in tech, don't be afraid, just ask, join some events, be curious, learn, and yeah, just don't limit yourself. That's the most important because the sky is the limit. That was so, widespread and mainstream, but still.
No, no, it's okay. I love that. So yeah, thank you once again, everyone. This recording will be put up on our YouTube channel in a few days, and very great to have everybody join us. And thank you. Take care.